Hello again and welcome back to the news. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. We will be doing intermediate world news today. And here in South Korea, on Wednesday, it was quite cold, sunny, but still quite cold. Tomorrow, on Thursday, it'll be mostly cloudy, but not as cold as on Wednesday. However, there will be intermittent or randomly occurring snow and flurries in the afternoon. Supposedly, coating up to 1 centimeter. On Friday, it'll be hazy and sunny a little bit, as well as very chilly, though not as chilly as today. Today is quite cold. The wind was tough. All right. So, before we get started, get something to drink, something cool, something warm, whatever you may want. Today, I'm having a little bit of ice Americano, even though it is cold outside, 초보자도 ice Americano, right? Let's get our story started today with the United States and Ukraine. The U.S. has ramped up efforts to broker peace in the war between Ukraine and Russia. Steve Witkoff, currently the U.S. Special Envoy, is traveling to Moscow to meet with Vladimir Putin for high-stakes negotiations. Witkoff's visit comes after a round of talks between American and Ukrainian officials, including figures such as Marco Rubio and members of the Ukrainian negotiating team. They were aimed at refining U.S.-backed peace proposal. The original draft was a 28-point plan that sparked widespread criticism because many viewed it as heavily favoring Russia. Even though it was heavily favoring Russia by many critics, Russia still panned it or considered it not good enough. After pushback from Ukrainian and European leaders, Washington reportedly revised the plan. The revised version is what Witkoff will bring to Moscow for negotiation. At the heart of the talks are several extremely sensitive issues. First, territory. Russian forces recently claimed to have captured key eastern Ukrainian cities such as Pokrovsk and Vovchansk. This gives Russia greater leverage in negotiations because control on the ground often influences outcomes at the table, meaning if you can control the area, then you can control whether you get to keep it or not at negotiations, usually. Second, the security and sovereignty of Ukraine. For Kiev, any lasting peace must include respect for Ukrainians' territorial integrity. This is one of our vocabulary words today. The right to defend itself, and a guarantee against forced concessions. Many Ukrainians and their allies view demands for territorial surrender or strict limits on their military as unacceptable. Third, the European reaction. Several European countries voiced concerns about the original U.S. proposal, warning that a peace deal should not reward aggression or legitimize Russia's territorial claims, as they have been considered to be illegal. Despite the urgency, lots of distrust remains. Critics argue that sending Witkoff, a business person turned envoy, not a seasoned career diplomat, undermines the credibility of the process. Some even view the earlier leaked draft as evidence that the U.S. was not ready to accept the Ukrainian demands. They're more likely to accept the Russian demands. Still, after revisions and fresh European pressure, Washington appears to be trying to salvage a framework that all sides might accept. If Witkoff and Putin can agree on a compromise, this could lead to the first real diplomatic breakthrough in nearly 4 years of war. But if talks fail, or if any agreement appears to force Ukraine into a corner, the result could inflame tensions even further and risk undermining trust among allies. Witkoff meets Putin in Moscow this week. Meanwhile, Ukrainians' leadership has made clear that protecting territorial integrity and national sovereignty remain non-negotiable. If the negotiations lead to a credible, acceptable agreement, we may finally see groundwork for a ceasefire, though much work remains. Still, with military developments on the ground, like the claims around Pokrovsk, continuing in parallel, the diplomatic efforts operates under a tight time frame and under heavy scrutiny from Ukraine's allies in Europe. Today's vocabulary starts with leverage. This is the influence or power to affect a decision, not just in government, but also in a relationship or in a job. You can leverage a raise from your boss, or using leverage, you can make someone do something. Like 영향력을 가진 힘이나 지렛대, like this way. Territorial integrity, the principle that a country's border and land must not be changed or violated by outside forces. Yeah, to maintain the integrity, which is the strength of something. Like the building has integrity, so it won't fall down. Think like 영토 보전, like 타국이 영토로 저를 침범하지 않은 원칙, like that. And diplomatic is the adjective for diplomacy or diplomat. It means relating to diplomacy or negotiations between governments, like we go away, like this kind of thing. We go jogging, etc. All right, let's move on to our new news in Japan. Global financial markets experienced a sudden shock this week after Japanese government bond yields climbed to their highest level in almost 17 years. Even though the latest bond auction in Tokyo received strong demand, the yield on the 10-year Japanese government bond, the JGB, continued rising. This surprised investors around the world and created a ripple effect across many markets. A bond yield is basically the return investors get for lending money to a government. Higher yields often mean investors expect interest rates to rise. Japan has kept interest rates extremely low for many years, so when yields suddenly jump, people notice. This week's yield increase signaled that Japan may be slowly moving away from its long-standing ultra-low rate policy. For global markets, the change came at a sensitive moment. Many countries are facing slow economic growth, high inflation, and uncertain central bank decisions. So, when the world's third largest economy shows signs of shifting its financial strategy, investors react quickly. Stock markets in Asia were the first to feel the pressure. Shares in Tokyo fell because the higher yields can make borrowing more expensive for businesses. Companies that rely on loans for expansion or daily operations may struggle more when interest rates rise. Technology and export-focused companies were hit especially hard. But the impact did not stop in Japan. Other Asian markets, including South Korea and Hong Kong, also saw declines. Investors began selling riskier assets, such as technology stocks or emerging market shares, and moved their money into safer places. European markets opened the next day with similar concerns. Germany's DAX and France's CAC 40 dropped as traders tried to figure out how higher Japanese yields might affect global interest rate policy. In the United States, futures pointed to a weaker opening on Wall Street as investors became more cautious. Even cryptocurrencies, which often move independently from traditional markets, were affected. Prices fell as traders reduced their risk exposure, choosing to hold cash instead of volatile digital assets. Bitcoin and several other major coins recorded noticeable declines. Gold, which is usually seen as a safe store of value during uncertain times, did not rise as much as expected. In fact, gold prices dipped slightly. This is because higher bond yields make non-yielding assets like gold less attractive. When investors can earn more money by holding bonds, they sometimes move away from precious metals. Economists say the situation is not a crisis, but it does reflect a changing global environment. For years, Japan has been known for its incredibly low borrowing costs. Investors around the world use Japanese money markets as a stable foundation. If Japan allows rates to rise, even slowly, the world might enter a new financial era. Another question is whether Japanese households and businesses can handle higher borrowing costs. Many Japanese families rely on loans for housing or education, and companies depend on low interest payments to manage their operations. If rates rise too quickly, domestic spending and growth could weaken. For now, central banks around the world are watching carefully. Investors are waiting for statements from the Bank of Japan to clarify whether this week's yield spike is temporary or part of a longer-term shift. Until then, global markets may continue to show signs of stress and uncertainty. We have a few words here. Our first is ripple effect. A ripple is when you drop something into water, it causes circles like this to expand. This is a ripple. So a ripple effect in an economy is some event causes waves to hit other places. For example, one event causes many other reactions or changes is the definition. 파급 효과. Think about 파급 효과. A yield is a noun that means the amount of money earned from an investment like a bond. So if you invest in some amount and the yield is how much you get back. This is 수익률, right? And cautious means it's an adjective that means careful, not wanting to take risks. This is, you can guess cautious. It just means careful, almost exactly the same. So 조심스러운, around that meaning. All right, before we continue, let's take a quick break. I'm going to grab a sip of my Americano. Bitter, but I love it. All right, much better. If you're enjoying today's news and you want to have us have more of these types of videos, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Hit the bell if you want to be notified whenever we make something new. It really helps the channel grow, and it lets me keep making digestible English news for you. All right, let's continue with the stories. Something now in space. A new kind of space race is taking shape, and it looks very different from the one during the Cold War. Instead of two superpowers competing to put humans on the moon, today multiple countries, and even private companies, are trying to build long-term bases, mining stations, and scientific labs on the lunar surface. This week, the competition became even clearer during a major aerospace summit in Glasgow, where world leaders and scientists gathered to discuss the future of space exploration. Two major groups have now formed. On one side, the United States is leading the Artemis program, which includes partners such as Europe, Japan, Canada, and several other nations. Their plan is to return astronauts to the moon, create a lunar gateway orbiting the station, and eventually build a long-term base on the south pole of the moon. This region is believed to contain ice, a critical resource for life support and fuel production. On the other side, Russia and China have strengthened their partnership. They announced new plans to build a joint lunar research station, share technology, and cooperate on building infrastructure on the moon. Their project is meant to compete directly with Artemis, creating two separate systems for lunar exploration. This rivalry is quickly becoming one of the most important geopolitical competitions of the decade. At the Glasgow summit, experts warned that the moon could become a place of tension if countries do not agree on rules. Unlike on Earth, there is no international government to control land claims or resource rights on the moon. Scientists are worried that without strong cooperations, nations might rush to claim valuable areas, especially the regions with lunar ice. Some fear that competition could eventually lead to conflict, either political or technological. Despite the concerns, many scientists also see this moment as a huge opportunity. Lunar exploration could lead to new discoveries in geology, physics, and even medicine. The moon's surface is also an ideal location for building giant telescopes because it has no atmosphere and very little light pollution. These telescopes could help researchers study distant galaxies and search for signs of life beyond Earth. However, one debate stood out during the summit. How should we protect the moon itself? Some scientists worry that too much activity could damage historic sites, such as the Apollo landing area from the 1960s and 70s. These sites are important cultural landmarks, similar to ancient ruins on Earth. Others argue that the moon's environment could be permanently changed if mining becomes too large or uncontrolled. To address these issues, several countries called for new international rules. They suggested agreements on where bases can be built, how resources should be shared, and how to protect important scientific and historical locations. But reaching a global agreement won't be easy, especially when major powers are competing for influence. Even private companies are entering the race. American, European, and Chinese companies are developing new rockets, lunar landers, and mining technologies. Some companies hope to extract minerals or produce fuel on the moon for future missions to Mars. Others want to offer commercial science missions or even space tourism. What makes this new space race unique is that it is no longer just about national pride. It is about economic opportunity, scientific progress, and long-term survival in space. If humans can successfully create stable settlements on the moon, it could become the starting point for deeper exploration into the solar system. For now, the world is watching closely. The next few years will show whether countries can balance competition with cooperation, and whether humanity's return to the moon becomes a peaceful scientific project or a new arena for geopolitical rivalry. Today's vocabulary in this science-related news story is starting with infrastructure. Infrastructure is the basic system needed for a place to function, like buildings, roads, or power. 기반 시설 is the meaning. Geopolitical is an adjective, is related to politics and power between countries. Let's see, it's like 지정학적인, something like that. It's geo is earth, political is politic, so it is politics relating to earth. Resource is an easier one, maybe, but something useful that can be used or collected, such as water, ice, or minerals, or honestly, it can be used for a lot of situations. People can be a resource. That's why we have HR, right? Human resources. 자원 is the Korean word. All right. This has been today's news on this Wednesday, chilly Wednesday, December 3rd. I hope you guys have had a great time. If you like this video, please let me know. If you want some changes, please let me know as well. I do read the comments, and I do want to implement things that will make it better for you, the people that like to listen. For example, recently we talked about changing the subtitles, and we're in the process of doing that. So thank you for that comment. All right, try to stay warm, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great week. Goodbye.